Hi, everybody. It's your old pal, Sarah Silverman, and I got to slap my name on a brilliant documentary short called Jack and Sam. And I'm talking to the filmmaker right now, Jordan Horowitz. Thank you for joining me here on Zoom.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So let me just ask you, what made you want to tell this story?
Yeah, it's a funny question because to be honest with you, I never thought I would tell a Holocaust themed movie. I didn't feel like there was anything I could add to the conversation that hasn't already been said before or done before. But then I read about Jack and Sam, and it's just such a beautiful story of an amazing friendship that spans such a long time. It's been 80 years, and it's about two people that have really endured some of the most horrible things that any of us could ever imagine, and they let their positivity and their hope and their love kind of like rule their lives. They weren't ruled by hate, so it was just such a beautiful story that I felt like it had to be told. And to be honest with you, the other thing was, excuse me, at the time we filmed this, which was a year and a half ago, back then there was a lot of anti-Semitic incidents that were being reported about around the world, especially here in Los Angeles. And outside of Los Angeles, obviously we had the Tree of Life shooting in Pittsburgh at the synagogue. Here in Los Angeles, we've had all these incidents of swatting and all these horrendous anti-Semitic flyers going around Beverly Hills and just
Plotting,
all
is that putting swastikas on things?
no, swatting is actually when people will call like the police and say somebody has a gun or is holding someone hostage. So then the SWAT team will come in. It's a very dangerous thing to do. Like people can get really hurt in that situation. It's just a horrible thing to do. And there was several incidents of that had been reported in the Jewish community. So I was just trying to figure out like, is there anything I can do to like lend myself to that conversation? And I didn't know what it was until I heard about Jack and Sam. And what was so interesting is even back then, a year and a half ago, it felt relevant to me, the film, and I had no idea how much more relevant it was about to become. So it's where we are.
Yeah, I will say watching it before October 7th and watching it after October 7th were very different experiences.
For me as well. Yeah.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges you came across making this film?
Unfortunately, we did lose Sam a couple months ago. So we're still kind of processing that. But I am so happy that, he was able to see the film before it was finished in front of a packed room of like 400 people. He was able to talk in front of them with Jack. And I'm just so happy that he has this legacy to kind of carry on. But
That they're so passionate about not just learning about the Holocaust or experiencing, or learning about the Jewish people or whatever, but just about hate
yeah.
and love and how useless hate is and
Right.
how
I think you're actually touching on the key message of this film for me. It's like, this isn't a political film in any way. This is a love story. And what's so important to me and what I think needs to be the message that should be taken away from people is that these people could have easily turned to hate and their lives could have been led by hate because of what they endured, but they didn't allow that to happen. They continued to live their lives with love, and you can see that in their friendship. And I think for the time that we live in, that's just such an important message. I feel like so many people in the world are kind of being guided by the wrong principles, by their hatred for something, whatever that is. And I feel like we need to find a way.
place to put their hatred, a place to put their unresolved, undiagnosed, undealt with stuff, and hatred.
Yeah. So, it's interesting for me when, when I'm feeling down or I'm stressed out about something and I'll see the movie or I'll see a scene from the movie or something. It always kind of puts a lot of things in perspective for me in my life and makes me realize how much smaller my problems really are. But it also inspires me, like the scene where they're at the school talking to children and they're explaining like the most important thing in life is hope and love, and not, people are so educated now, as Jack says, but not to allow themselves to be guided by hatred. It just those things really move and inspire me, which is why I really am glad I got to tell this story. As far as challenges go, dealing with two people in their late 90s is certainly a challenge. They have a lot of life story that they can tell, and they want to tell it all to you, and usually in like one single breath. So one you could ask them one question and they could talk for 40 minutes, and it's all super interesting, but it's not necessarily where you need it to go for the film. So just kind of wrangling that is challenging. Dealing with the animation was a big challenge, and
Well, that was my next question. I mean,
oh,
the animation is so brilliant. It's so seamless within this 20-minute short. And it just helps so much telling the story, painting the picture of things that were not captured on film,
yeah.
and it's astounding. What was that process?
Well, I always knew I wanted to do that, or at least I wanted to try doing that. I didn't know if I'd pull it off, but because you're right, there's not like there's archival footage of Jack living in the forest when he escapes from the Nazis. But B, I felt like it would be a way to make the film very palatable for a younger generation, and I do find that in our screenings, kids especially really perk up at that moment, and it really draws them in a way that they weren't before, and then they're kind of hooked for the rest of the film. But yeah, the process was interesting because basically to find my animator Lucas, who I just love so much, he's an animator out of New Zealand, and I found him by going down this super deep YouTube rabbit hole, just watching like tons, like literally like hundreds of animated films and shorts and different things, and I don't even know how I stumbled on him. I was looking for a very specific look. Like Waltz with Bashir was a very specific comp. I wanted like a very jagged, edgy line, like an adult style of animation. And anyway, when I found him, I called him in New Zealand, and he's like, "Hey, how did you hear about me?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." Like I literally couldn't trace it back to how I found him. And he told me that he doesn't even really do this anymore. He still does animation, but only for himself. He's really focused on directing. But he's like, well, I'll check out a rough cut of the film anyway, just to see what you're doing. And the film's 20 minutes. I sent it to him, and I'm not kidding, he called me back 25 minutes later, and he's like, oh yeah, we're doing this. Like, let's figure this out.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really great.
It's just amazing. It's unbelievable.
And one of the concerns we were having with the animation was how to get in and out of it in a way that wouldn't be jarring for a viewer who's been watching a documentary the whole time.
It's seamless.
Yeah, so I remember we didn't actually know going into it how we were gonna do it, but I remember when we figured out the cattle car scene where it opens up into animation. That was a really big thrill for me and my animator and my editor when we kind of put it together with this little 2D mock-up, and we just knew like it looked like crap, it was like a hand-drawn thing, but we knew it was just gonna look fantastic. So yeah, we were very fortunate. It just was the right thing to do for the film.
Did any of the stories, any great stories that didn't make it in? I mean, to tell this in 20 minutes is a total feat and it's
Yeah.
perfect, but it seems like you must have hours of
I've
amazing.
been toying with the idea of writing a feature because, to be honest with you, I mean, there's hours of interviews. There's so much story that couldn't possibly fit into this film. For me, it was very important to keep the film right at 20 minutes, again, to make it palatable to younger people who are, watching stuff on their phones and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, Jack was telling me this, so for the escape scene, for example, I had Jack walking me through it in real time, like beat by beat, because I knew I was going to animate it. And he had literally been talking for like 15, 20 minutes about this really long escape scene and much crazier things than what's in the film. But I remember he said one thing, and I can't remember what it is, but he said one thing that just didn't make sense for being in the forest. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're saying this thing, but earlier you were saying this. And I asked him to explain it, and he just like stopped for a minute and thought about it. And he's like, oh, he's like, that was the first camp that I escaped from. And so he had a whole nother, camp that he escaped from, and all this crazy stuff happened. And another big thing is after Jack went to the forest, Sam had a whole ordeal. Like he was transferred to another camp. He was put on what they call like the death march, where he was walking for weeks with no food in a forest, living off of like bugs off and bark off the trees. And just all kinds of crazy stuff happened in both their lives before they even made it to America. Which yeah, I mean, it's all fascinating stuff. It's just again to keep it in a short to keep the film in a short running time, and also to get to the dinner, the reunion scene, which is like really where I was trying to go to as fast as I could. You couldn't do it all.
Yeah. But it is such a movie of relentless hope despite every possible heinous obstacle. I mean, obstacle doesn't seem quite the word, but and what do you hope to achieve with this
Well, I
film?
think, yeah, I mean, for one thing, I want people to see the film and to take that away because I just think that's a really important message. Again, especially in the time we're living in when it just you're just bombarded by hatred everywhere you look. You know what I mean? It's hard to get away from it. And I think we all kind of deal with a little bit of PTSD in our own ways because of it. So I just hope that helps, give people some relief and some calm. I really want to get this film to as many schools as we can. I just want as many, younger people to see it as possible all over the world. Luckily, having people like you involved has been very helpful to us where people have reached out. Tons of teachers have been reaching out to us to see the film, and we're trying to figure all that out. So I
Well,
just
you
want people to see the film,
such a no-brainer. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone should see this. None of this is about Jews. It's about all of us, and I mean, of course it is about the Holocaust, but I will say, I mean, my one pitch would just be, I know this stuff often feels like homework. This film, there's not a moment in this film that feels like homework. It's You devour it and it goes by like nothing and it's amazing.
I appreciate you saying that. That was the task we had going in. That was the mission statement. I'm like, this is not going to be a homework assignment for people. It's going to be a fun, enjoyable, not enjoyable, but like an
But it
entertaining
is, I
film
mean,
that
it's
really makes you think.
because the perseverance of
Yeah.
it and the joy they are
Yeah.
totally able to experience in finding each other.
Yeah, I told you this a few weeks ago, but when we did the screening in Florida with both Jack and Sam, Jack said something that really blew me away. I think about it all the time. He said to the audience, this film is the most important thing in his life that he's done. And I did not believe him when he said it. I was like, obviously he's, showboating for the crowd or whatever. And I was talking to his son Harlan after the screening. And what Harlan told me was, no, he absolutely means this, because something I didn't realize is that a lot of these survivors, they've been carrying around so much guilt their whole lives. One of the things that Jack actually went back to the forest with his son about 20 years ago. Yeah, the exact spot where he escaped to, and he kind of had like a mini breakdown. And one of the things Jack said, he started crying and stuff. He was like, I don't understand why I survived and all of these people didn't. He's like, I was not the smartest one in the group. I was not the strongest one in the group, like all these reasons. He literally couldn't process it. He's like, this is the first time in his life that he feels like he has this like higher purpose, and he realizes like he's here to continue to tell this message about hope and what they went through so that people don't forget. So yeah, I mean, there's actually a video going around the internet of him dancing at a party like 2 weeks ago. He's 99 years old. It's the cutest thing you'll ever see in your life. So yeah, you guys, everybody at home that watches this should Google it because it's really cute, and he's just so full of life in it.
People who have been through what he's been through really understand joy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, it probably makes when somebody in your life is like, oh, I'm stressed out, I don't know what color carpet to get or whatever. It's like, who cares?
Truly.
Yeah.
All right, Jordan Horowitz, thank you so much. The documentary short is called Jack and Sam, and don't miss it. Run at any opportunity to see it. And thanks.